Oh, there he is.
All
right, so are we good to go?
Okay, we are. Who's talking? Okay, so the meeting, let's begin the meeting. Welcome, everybody. And so it does, I don't see anything about making a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting. So
You
should we,
should definitely do that.
we should definitely do that. So. Gary, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, good. Okay. So would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll move to accept the minutes from the last meeting.
Second.
Okay, we're done.
Ah,
You want to vote?
you want to vote?
All right, let's vote. All say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thumbs up. Okay, so let's begin the discussion. Whoops. Let's begin the discussion with the draft electronic meeting. I guess we should go item by item, since this is new to me, and I guess it's new to everybody. And this is different from meeting in person. Is that your understanding, everybody?
Yes,
This applies only to meeting electronically.
this is a new policy for only meeting electronically. And the only reason I am speaking up now is because, as I mentioned to Sheila and Christine, I actually spent some time looking at what was here, and then all this red is me. So I think it was, Christine thinks that Jessica drafted the original,
Uh-huh.
and then I took a few minutes to rewrite it. So that's what you see here.
Okay. And I took minutes to have lots of questions, so good.
Okay.
Okay, so starting with number 1, authority and scope. So this policy is adopted pursuant of.
Wait, before we do this, Sheila, can I suggest that we talk
Sure.
about a couple of just general
Okay.
matters first?
Sure.
So I think that the group was in agreement that there should be a policy for participation electronically, and that's fine. Now Jessica made some when she drafted this policy, she made some decisions that I missed one of these policy meetings, subcommittee meetings, so I'm not sure if you guys had agreed to all these, but even if you have or not, maybe we could talk about them for a minute.
Yeah,
So
good,
what Jessica had in the original policy was that people could request to participate remotely. The assumption under this policy is that there is an in-person meeting going on. So this policy actually does not address the circumstances where the entire meeting is virtual, like we're doing now.
Mhm.
And one of my first questions was, do we need a separate policy that talks about when the chair decides, or because of county circumstances, the entire meeting is virtual? Do we need a section that deals with that, or is that coming up somewhere else? So that's kind of question 1.
All right.
Then you move to what this particular policy is about. And this particular policy is, and if you look actually at this policy, just to my previous point, if you look at the number 1B, she says this policy shall not govern an electronic meeting conducted to address a state of emergency declared by the governor. So, I mean, my suggestion is we only have one policy that deals with with any electronic meeting stuff, but we probably should have something somewhere that deals with when there is a state of emergency, such as now, which is making these all virtual. But then there would be the separate option, which would be, let's say, if the chair decides that the entire meeting should be virtual for some other reason, let's say, I mean, what would the reason be? Maybe we know a huge snowstorm is coming. And you'd have to know it like at least 3 days in advance so you could post it. But I'm just throwing that out there as an issue that we should probably think about. Okay, so then the other couple policy decisions that Jessica embedded in this policy is assuming there is a real world meeting going ahead, what are the circumstances under which a person, a member, a trustee, and I switched all the members to trustee, but you can switch it back out, can request to attend virtually. And there's two circumstances. One is that there's a medical or a disability reason.
Mhm.
And in that case, what Jessica embedded in here is that a trustee could request leave to attend virtually under such a circumstance, and they could do so for an unlimited number of meetings. They
Right.
wouldn't need to have additional whatever. And then the other thing was that a person could request it for some other reason. Now, Jessica had put in here for a personal reason and the requirement that the trustee disclose that personal reason to the chair. I actually, in my edits, you'll see, I personally think that you don't need that. If it's a personal reason, it's a personal reason. There shouldn't be a requirement that the chair or anybody else get to judge whether or not it's a good reason or not. Yeah, I don't even think you want to go there.
Right.
And so, I mean, you can put it back in, but as a topic of discussion, the first issue we should discuss is, should we give the people an option to miss a meeting for a personal reason or not even give them that option? And secondly, if you give them that option, Jessica picked the number 2, that people
Sure.
could miss 2 meetings a year
Yeah.
based on that. And we should discuss whether that's too many, too few, whatever.
And see,
And then, I mean, the rest of it is just some line editing here.
Right.
But those are the policy issues I think maybe we discussed before we get into the line edits.
right, but going back to my original question was, why limit 2 meetings for personal meeting when sometimes people don't attend for whatever reason our general meetings? And is there a limit to how many times you are allowed to miss or not? You know, I mean, it
There is.
seemed like
Well, there actually is.
Yeah, there
there
is.
is. And
Yeah,
where is
yeah.
that? Where is that? I didn't see it. I don't mean in this document, but where is it? It's not in the bylaws, is it? I didn't. Where is it written down?
I'll look for that while you're talking,
Is
okay?
it policy?
I
or-
thought it was like 5 or something. I mean, when Will Jasper started to miss so many meetings in a row, there
Mhm.
was, Jessica, I remember mentioning to me that there was some number after which she felt like she needed to notify the Lee
So why don't
district.
why don't I look that up while you're discussing? I'll look, because I know I've seen it, and I'll look in the bylaws for that, okay?
I'm sorry, I should have, I have looked at the bylaws so many times, I am surprised I missed it, but I think that we should make a note of that, because I don't see how this shouldn't be different from our regular meetings. If we do something electronically, it shouldn't be different from our regular meetings. the way
Right.
It's written. So should we start with the word, the definition member, and just change it to trustee?
Well, let's, before we do that, let me
You
just
wanna do
suggest
something?
this. How do, so let me just throw out this question.
Mhm.
I actually think, I think it's worth discussing not having a personal reason to miss a meeting in person. You know, I mean, the problem is that if you are selected to be part of the board, part of the obligations is to come in person, because honestly, I don't think anybody would argue that an in-person meeting, you know, helps conversation, helps discussion, helps the public. And the other issue, of course, is that given our particular physical circumstances, electronic participation in the George Mason Library Community Meeting Room is not going to be great.
No,
It's just not, unless we move the meetings to the government center on a permanent basis, which kind of defeats the whole concept of meeting in a library. But like Christine, I don't even know if you know how we're going to be capable of even having good electronic meetings in that room. We're going to move around the conference little piece of equipment. I mean, unless you have a setup where the conference call is, you know, already built into the ceiling, it's crap.
Yeah.
So I think it's worth discussing not having a personal reason to go electronically. So for instance, I mean, a personal reason might be people, get older, they feel uncomfortable driving at night, right?
Well,
And that's a real reason. I'm not
I'm-
making that up. That's a real
not-
reason. But the
I'm not
problem
laughing
is,
because half of us could say that, exactly.
exactly, half of you could say that, and yes, people would take advantage of it, but I hate to say it, but if these meetings are meetings that are scheduled at night and you want people to participate, that has to be a thing. So, if somebody needs to miss a meeting for a personal reason, like they have a conflict, well, then they're not going to attend anyway. It's not so much that they would do it virtually or not virtually. So anyway, I think it's worth discussing. And I think if we give people the remote participation option for any reason, people will definitely take advantage of it.
Well, I have a question. What
So-
about, would a death in the family be a medical or a personal? Like if you
I
have
think
a-
that would be a personal reason, but if you have a death in the family, wouldn't you just not attend the meeting at all?
Yeah, you wouldn't be sitting at home doing it.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
No. Like,
So
can't get a
I don't
baby-
want to be hard-hearted. I just, it's not like we meet that often. I just wonder if we,
Marion, I agree with you in what you're saying, because I went through what would be possible meetings. I can't get a babysitter, so it's easier to log on at home and whatever. I mean, not that there's not minimizing needs like that, but I think that I really couldn't come up with anything. If you were sick, you're sick, you wouldn't come.
like if you were sick, that would be a medical reason. You don't need to, you
Exactly.
don't need to justify. I took out any justifications in the policy, like you need, but if you were sick, you could, but the thing is, the way this works, they actually have to tell you, Sheila, in advance. So it's not even a day of kind of thing.
Yeah. Right. And then it also, further down, it goes to the board to check.
Well, I
to
took
vote
that
on-
out too, to be honest
Yeah,
with you.
to vote
personally.
on whether, so
Yeah,
it seems very convoluted to me and very difficult to, I agree with you. I think
I
that
took that out.
I spent a lot
So
of.
I don't know, Gary and Fran, what do you think about the personal reason? I don't want to be hard-hearted. I don't know if it's an option we even want to, I have to say, the Zoom meetings where everybody's on Zoom have been surprisingly effective.
Yeah.
So, I don't object to virtual meetings where everybody's virtual. I think meetings where one or two people virtual, I just don't think you get that much out of it as the virtual person, but. Gary?
I know I'm thinking about it, but I tend to agree with you that maybe we just forget the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's the concern I had in the beginning, was that we're dealing with a situation that we don't have yet.
Yeah.
I think medical is enough. Like if someone has a big cast on their leg or something, but they're still participating.
Well, having a big cast on my arm didn't keep me from going to meetings. I just hired my husband to drive me.
Well, my aneurysm surgery did, but I don't know if I would have wanted to participate at home, from home even.
Yeah, I don't.
But we could be insensitive to, disability issues by not having something like that.
You mean not having at least something that covers disability and medical issues?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, it doesn't hurt us. I know, and I've been in meetings where, you have that gizmo in the table and people can hear and then talk, and it's weird, but I think it doesn't hurt to have it in there as if.
Okay, so it sounds like, at least at this phase, we are in agreement to create the policy for purposes of medical or disability reasons.
Mhm.
And then would you agree, and I took this out, that I mean, right now, the way I rewrote it was, they have to tell Sheila and Sheila decides. It's not a board decision. There's no verification. Sheila as chair just is a yay or nay. And
Yeah.
I mean, when would she say nay? And then it would be recorded in the minutes that the person was virtual.
Right. Fran, did you find the place that talked about attendance at meetings in general? Oops, Fran,
What?
I said, did you find the place that talked about attendance?
No, I couldn't find that. I know, and I'm wondering if I'm mixing it up with the foundation board, because I know they have, but then I remember something, you know, that when the Ruston trustee didn't come to meeting after meeting after meeting, and that became an issue, but I couldn't find it in the bylaws, and
Yeah,
so-
what's in the bylaws, yeah.
It might be in the code that says, that establishes that we could have a library board. So I can check into that after the meeting. We don't need to spend
Yeah.
meeting time
Yeah.
on it, but I'll get back to you about that.
okay.
Because I think that the electronic meeting, I think we probably should have something just because it has come up. And right now we're trying to figure out technology. Maybe there'll be technology in the future. I mean, who knew about Zoom before all of this happened? So there might be technology in the future because more and more establishments and agencies and classes and everything will be online. There might be something invented there. So maybe not to struggle with our electronic meeting wouldn't be very satisfying at this point, but to have the in the possibility that there would be a technology that would make it possible, just to take out a lot of the particulars and just make it kind of in a broad, so it's mental, not mental, it's medical or disability, and you know, the chair would, you know, the notification would go to the chair, as you said, Miriam.
What
So
about,
Sheila, on the other hand, I sort of think we are all adults, and if we have a reason that we can't go out to a meeting, isn't that enough? It's not like we're high school students or something like that, or like that we have to say, oh, I don't feel good, I can't come. I mean, I don't know. I'm
well, it's
sort of
just
off the
that they
top of my
need to
head.
notify Sheila.
Yeah.
Well, how about this? How about, okay, so what are you saying, Fran, that we don't even have it as a permission thing? It's
Yeah.
just, they tell Sheila and they're allowed to do it. There's no permission or no.
That's what I'm thinking, yeah.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
take out that whole section 5 that talks about approval and disapproval. Yeah, that makes it into kind of a middle school, high school type of a.
Yeah, I did take it out, and you might want to scroll down, Christine. I did take that out in the version already. But you might even then, given what we just said, I made this new 5. I would simply say honor before the day of the meeting. It would actually have to be honor before the day meeting and at any point before the meeting begins. Well, I think you could take out that phrase, and at any point, well, whatever. The requesting trustee must notify the board chair that they are requesting to participate. How about if it just says that they are going to participate remotely? The only problem is,
Well,
practically, do you need, Christine, would you need to know before the day of the meeting so that you can get the right equipment there? Because this means we always have to have the right equipment.
Right. That's right.
It depends on what equipment we need. You know, I don't know what,
Conference calling equipment, I
the
think.
conference call, yeah. that'd
I
be
don't
the
know
thing.
what is hardwired into the George Mason meeting room at this point, so I'll need to look into that.
Okay. So, yeah, so if it's just hardwired into the meeting room, then I would say, then you could leave it as it is, because then all we need to do is turn it on. But if you need something, we need at least a day. Although if it's a medical reason, then, you know, sometimes people don't know that day. The requesting trustee shall also notify the county staff liaison. That's fine. then I would take out this
Does that
new
mean-
paragraph C, because they don't have to tell you why. The reason why is up above what the reason can be.
Mhm.
And you
Okay.
take out,
Can we stop for a second so that I can catch up with you? Because
Yeah.
Yeah.
First of all, do we want to accept the idea of trustee versus member? Shall I go ahead and?
oh yeah, I don't care. What do you guys?
Yeah, that's good.
That's
I
our
think-
terminology. We know it. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
definitely. Yes.
So. And then they're not requesting that they will participate remotely.
They're just notifying.
Let me stop right there for a second. If you're having a meeting with the public and there is a request for audio or some sort of a technology, there is a time limit before that, because it does need to be set up. Even if the branch has equipment in house, it still needs, somebody needs to set it up. So I can't remember what we have in the branches about requesting, audio or whatever technology needed for a disability, but we might kind of echo what's already been written in that type of
Right.
policy.
Well, you raise a good point. I mean, if we give a trustee the ability to notify that they want to participate remotely, are we
Oh,
now having to give the public the opportunity to notify us that they want to participate remotely because they have a medical reason?
oh,
I
that-
mean,
that's touchy. Yeah.
do we have to worry about that? I'm a little, but the public
Yeah.
has to come in person, but a trustee can participate remotely?
Good question.
That's a very good question.
Need research.
No wonder we haven't done this before. We're just opening all sorts of cans of worms here. All right, so that's a question we have to ask.
Yeah. And
But
if we could go
probably-
back to letter B, I don't understand what that means. The requesting trustee shall also notify the county staff liaison.
Who's the?
I think what it
contact?
means, to me, I took that to mean that Jessica wanted the staff to know, so if they had to do something, they would know to do it, meaning that the trustee should, if they're going to email Sheila, they should email the staff at the same time. It's on them. It's not on
Or what
Sheila.
about
Who is
the
that?
chair notifying the library? I mean, I wouldn't know, let's say I couldn't come, I wanted this electronic meeting for myself. I wouldn't know who to
No.
to notify Judge Mason.
Yeah,
Because
who is that?
whoever's on duty that night would be the person. It wouldn't, maybe the branch manager, maybe the assistant, it's, or the circ manager. So
Yeah,
I think
I
that's
would-
really gets complicated.
yeah, I agree, Sheila. I think it should be just in part of maybe they should notify the library director, because then it's the library director's administrative aide who would have to take care of all that, right?
That's right.
Would that be the chair or the requesting member? Trustee?
I think the chair.
Yeah. Well,
Director.
the individual could do it. The trustee could, if you're gonna send an email to chair to say, I can't come, you could at the same time send it to the director.
Yeah,
To
that's what
notify
I meant.
both.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about some of the things that Marion has just said. We are making a rule or procedure or a policy for something that doesn't exist right now. And we don't have a clue what would be existing in the future.
Well, but if there's new technology in the future, then we'll have to change the policy. The question is, given
Right.
what we have now, which is basically conference calling ability,
Yeah.
no
Right.
images,
Yeah.
Yeah.
do we want to do this? And I think,
So we do want to have something in place for it. yeah.
right, we can keep discussing it, but clearly Christine's going to have to do a little bit of digging on a couple of these questions before we're
Yes.
ready to. Let me throw one other point out about this policy. I would suggest that we have something in here that says, maybe it's not this policy, maybe it's another, I mean, or just one video policy that says that the chair in consultation with the director of the library has a power to call a virtual meeting for no reason other than the fact that they want to, not that language. I don't know if that's permissible.
Yeah, I don't either.
But if it were permissible, and now that we know that Zoom works, it may be, you know, Fran, that you decide like the February meeting, you decide in January, you know, February is a cold, miserable month. No one wants to come out. Let's do it virtually.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good idea.
But I mean, I don't know if that's, Christine, there's another question for you. I mean, we're under this emergency declaration that allows the boards and commissions to meet virtually. Once it's over,
Right, will that,
do we still have that?
Right, that's something
Authority.
that really needs to be
Okay.
looked into, because when our Zoom meetings first began, what I understood was that it almost had to permission come from the governor to declare a state of emergency for the state. It was so unusual, and I can see these things happening in the future personally. I think everybody would kind of be happy if this was a possibility in the future. But I think, so Christine, that's something else that we need to hear,
Right.
to look into.
So are we going to finish with 5 and then go back up to the top? What's your organizational preference?
Oh, I guess we could start from the top, but I am a little wondering if we don't need to answer some of these questions and then go back to the drafting.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
Okay.
I mean, maybe we should note in the policy, or Christine, you could just note in your notes that we have concluded, I mean, I don't know that we need to wordsmith this minute, but that we've concluded that a trustee can simply notify, there's no board, there's no chair decision whether about the medical, that the fact that they are missing it because of a medical reason. The chairs, we're going to take out language that says the chair says yay or nay. I've already taken out language saying the board gets to approve.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'll do, if it's okay with you guys, is I will accept the changes for Miriam that deal with member versus trustee. And then I'll take out all of the stuff that has to do with permission.
Mhm. Yeah.
Would you like me to take out the stuff that also has personal reasons? Are we focusing strictly on medical and disability at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
one thing that occurs to me, and I don't know if it's the right time to bring it up, but back in 5, letter A, at any point before the meeting begins, were we going to take that out because of the issue of setting up
Yeah.
equipment needs more time than at any point before the meeting begins? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then I don't understand in the next one, but failure to do so shall not affect their ability to remotely participate.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's weird.
Well, let's leave that
Maybe
for
just
later.
put
If-
that up in the, we should note, the requesting trustee must notify the board chair and library director that they will, I don't know, they would like to, I guess.
No, they will. It's not that they would like to, because there's
Yeah,
no
they can.
permission.
Yeah.
I mean, really, the only issue is going to be, and maybe we need to make a note of this, that we're going to do our best to accommodate them. But
Yeah,
if we can't, the meeting can still go forward. It's not
Right.
mandatory on the board to make sure. Well, maybe there should be some language that says, the board will do its best to accommodate the request, but it may not be able to in all circumstances or something. Like,
right.
I don't
and
want
let's
any
still-
big decision of the board to be compromised because somebody couldn't attend because we couldn't get the conference call to work.
Yeah. Well, should we?
Maybe I'm overthinking this.
Well, I'm going back to the original thing of, regulations for, boards of, is just on a whim that someone can participate remotely. I mean, and that, I don't know, that's,
I kind of like the idea that somebody had, that we just go through this whole thing and make up a list of questions that need to be answered and then go at it.
yeah.
Yeah, I think you're
that's a
right,
good
Gary.
idea.
Yeah. Because as I go through this again, and I have gone through it more than once now, it's really only about allowing a participant to attend a meeting electronically. It has nothing to do with having a whole meeting electronically,
Right.
because going back to 1B, basically it's the governor. So even if we were having a, a snowmageddon or a tornado or something, well, then we probably wouldn't, because there wouldn't be any electricity, but it just has to do with one person participating, making the electronic available.
So the questions that I'm going to research are whether or not the chair can call a remote meeting
Yes,
of everybody based on circumstances like a snowmageddon.
Yeah.
I'll find out about the number of meetings that a trustee can miss.
yeah, definitely.
Find out what the technology is in the George Mason meeting room for conference calls, if that's already hardwired in there, and how much time in advance we would need to set that up if we were requested to do so.
Good.
And whether or not we have to provide the public a chance to participate remotely if we're providing that opportunity to
Excellent.
trustees.
That's really
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Is there anything I missed? That's a lot, but
That's
I'm
a
happy to
lot.
do more. Okay, so we'll table the rest of the discussion on this policy until I get
Mhm.
answers to those questions. And in the meantime, I'm going to take out the information that we talked about, that for personal reasons, out of this document, out of Miriam's draft of this document, and change change member to trustee. All good?
Oh,
Well,
good.
good.
Okay.
But
Okay.
should we go through the rest of it just to make sure there aren't any more questions? I mean, just
Sure.
sort of skim
Sure.
through it.
That's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Good.
Let me know when you're ready.
Okay, so one of the reasons for having this policy is that the board needs a quorum at meetings. So if there's some possibility that a quorum wouldn't be met, that would be a justification for remote participation.
No, I think what they're saying is,
Did I get that wrong?
I think what it's saying is, if you get so many requests for medical reasons that you don't have a physical quorum,
Yeah,
that then, since it's a mandatory requirement that people be physically assembled, that there be a quorum, then who's ever that then people wouldn't be able to miss it for medical reason. But it's completely impractical, because in that case, you wouldn't have a quorum anyway, because they're not going to show up if they're medically unavailable. So basically it's saying, if you don't have a quorum, you don't have a quorum. So basically what it's saying is, you always need to have a quorum of physical people.
okay.
That's what it's saying.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a meeting.
Okay.
Shall I scroll down?
You wanna look out the window?
Yeah, so we were going to take out that number C. 4C was going to come out entirely.
Oops. Well, let's do that differently. And then, is this part accurate? Can I approve this?
I don't think we want to approve anything, do we?
Okay,
Well, temporarily.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
just agree to look at it.
I think that's all right, yeah.
as draft language.
Yeah. And then actually, that new paragraph C is out also, because
Yep.
that is the only reason. Not that C, the next C, the one that's now
Oh.
C, the one that's below that. Yeah, that's
This one?
out.
Mm,
And as is the next paragraph, that's all out. So we could probably rejigger this policy.
Delete all of that is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Everybody else down with that?
In the end, it's going to be a one paragraph policy.
yeah.
That's all right. There's no shame in that.
If you can't come and we can do this, okay.
And I'm taking this out too. The personal
Yeah.
reasons.
Yeah.
So I guess then there's the possibility that Christine finds out that there are mandatory county policies
Yeah,
to allow this, right?
For what?
There may be mandatory county policies that would override our ability to make up our own.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Yeah.
So any other questions that I'll need to research for 5 and 6?
You can take out B. 6B can come out.
Yes. Oops.
And you can take out C.
Yeah.
It is gonna be a one paragraph policy. And then what's 7?
closed
The
session.
closed session.
7 is closed session. Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a good point.
Well, you made short work of that.
Yeah.
So, okay.
The other question I had last month was, is the county anywhere working on a general policy that would affect
Yeah,
all the groups?
Right. That's what
Yeah.
that's what
That's
I was asking
exactly-
too.
yeah.
I don't know the answer to that, but I will look into that too, Gary.
Yeah.
Okay, so are we done with this draft until I get back to you with my dissertation about the answers that you've requested?
I guess so, yeah.
Do you need it to be in white paper, in APA, or?
Chicago style.
Exactly. Okay, so I'll stop sharing. And then policy W.
Policy W.
Oh my God, parking lots. I missed, why did we need a policy about parking lots?
Oh, boy.
Well, we have a policy about parking
We
lots.
do? Wow.
Oh, yeah,
we
and it
do.
is a popular one. I need to get to my,
And wasn't there an issue at one of the branches of cars being parked for a long time and staff was concerned and
Yeah.
and wanted to ticket them? No.
yes.
At which point I
But
remember.
do we control, is it the board who controls the, I mean, isn't that a county policy about commuter and overnight parking? I mean, is this a board of trustees policy, that issue?
Well, let me show you the policy. You do control
Mhm.
the, hang on, policy W.
We control the use of the parking lots? Wow.
You
Mhm.
sure do. You've got
Mhm.
all the power. Um,
Except we can't do anything to anybody.
that is an
There
accurate
you
statement.
go.
You've got all of the decision making and none of the power. How's that?
That's right.
And we do frequently get issues with this. And let me give you just a little bit of background. For example, reasons that we allow people who are not library users to park here. We allow school bus drivers to park school buses because they are mandated to be parked in county lots. They can't be parked anywhere else. And so to be good neighbors, we allow where we have the space for school buses to park. We also allow county employees who use county vehicles to park either their county vehicle or their personal vehicle, depending upon if they're coming to work or going to work, in our lots. We don't allow commuter parking, and that is something that goes on regularly. And then we also decided that the director's leadership team had a discussion about, do we call the police to ticket? And we definitely do that if a car is not working and has been abandoned. But we don't generally do that if somebody is, just parking, commuter parking. We'll leave notes on the car. But because ticketing and towing is so prohibitively expensive, we have not generally pursued that because it is usually something that would put somebody who is in dire straits over the edge and they wouldn't be able to get their car back to go to work or whatever else they need to do.
Have you found that notes work? Like people get a note and they don't come back?
Sometimes, I mean, I would say 40% of the time, once people know that you've noticed them and they can move their car, they will. Or sometimes they come in and they say, I know, I'm really sorry. It's getting towed next week. Can you just put up with me until next week? And they, so there's some sort of satisfaction, a fairly good percentage of the time.
How big a problem is it?
That's a great question, Gary. It's in fits and spurts. Like right now, the Thomas Jefferson Library, the reason that we're talking about this is the Thomas Jefferson Library sits next to apartment complexes, and it appears as though people have decided that they're not going to pay the apartment complex for a parking permit because they can park next door at the library. So their residents are refusing to get parking permits for their own building because they can park at the library. And we don't really have any recourse except to say to the apartment complex, hey, could you please tell your residents not to park here? And they say, sure. And they either do or don't, and it doesn't have an impact. So, but it's very hard to prove that the people parked there aren't using the library.
Christine, I also, with new branches opening and kind of a new model for libraries, multi-use, more and more libraries are being located within business complexes. And the Reston Regional Library in the preliminary planning is to be a multi-use. Fairfax City Library shares parking lot. I think a lot of these rules are unenforceable, and some of them are so clear, what not to do. And I think that it's going to be confusing and not applicable, especially with the newer. Lorton Library is going to face the same problem, sharing a community center space. And how are you going to say who's taking pottery this morning and yoga or using the library? I think that it's kind of opening up a can of worms.
Well, the reason that this was put before you right now was the branch manager of the Thomas Jefferson branch said, if you're not going to police, ticket, and tow, take that out of the policy because we're threatening something that we never have an intention of doing.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's a good point.
Except,
wait,
except if I could, I do remember when I was at Fairfax City, the old Fairfax City, that there was that the city would ticket a car that we felt had been abandoned with a 30-day clock. And then after, if it was still there, then they would tow it.
Yeah, so
So I'm not sure that I want to get rid of that.
well, Fran, that is actually taken care of in another, on the police department's website. There's a whole section about blight and cars on blocks and abandoned vehicles.
Uh-huh.
And so we can invoke the abandoned vehicles part of
I
that
didn't-
clause
okay.
without having a clause of our own.
Okay,
Yeah. I think that's good. Yeah.
good.
So are
And
you
I think that-
recommending to take this out?
Well, I
Since-
know I think it's probably,
okay.
it's an issue also at Woodrow with the soccer fields too.
Well, that's a shared lot.
So
So
that
that's what
makes it-
Sheila was talking about. That's a
Yeah,
little bit of a
okay.
different circumstance.
Yeah,
I think we should take out what is unenforceable and, it's just an empty, a lot of work for the library staff. And people will just say, well, they don't do anything. They don't mean anything. So,
Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry.
yeah, I don't know, that's my personal opinion.
The only issue is that and this is what we're struggling with, that it leaves us with absolutely no options.
right,
Right,
right.
now you
So-
can't say that we'll never ticket or tow.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that one resident, who was it? The one librarian was upset about that, but that's not a reason to take it out, honestly. Because we got one negative feedback for it.
Well, I mean, yes, because the current library administration, the leadership team has decided procedurally
Yeah,
that we think that the negatives, that the bad community ill will that engenders doesn't move the ball forward in our favor. So we have decided procedurally not to pursue that. But that doesn't mean that we don't still have the option of pursuing it under your current policy.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, do we want to enforce the marijuana laws or not?
Exactly. So
well, I
It-
think right now, we're in a time where we want to be sensitive to needs of people who may have lost their jobs, et cetera. But the future may not be the same thing, may be different. Because I think do we want to leave ourselves open to people pulling their RVs in and just staying because it's a nice big parking lot? And I don't mean, disadvantaged people either.
Well, they can go to Walmart. No, I know that. There's a whole website on what Walmart offers. It's called a dry.
Right, oh, I saw that, yes, and come in and use the bathrooms and stuff. And Walmart doesn't pay their employees enough to get health insurance, so, yeah, but that's, so that's,
So-
I like having it as an option. I just remember some of the issues at different places where I work, but.
so it sounds like we
But
don't.
to your point, Sheila, about the multi-use facilities, I think that it would be different.
Yeah. So maybe
And
we're
maybe-
looking at the word shall, or get a word in that makes it a possibility, but not a directive.
Or we have something
What
in there
if,
about libraries located at multi-facility area parking lots, have something different for that.
Right, so, but using, so it says, the above basic use policy shall be resolved. Now, does that mean it could be, but it's a possibility? I've lost my definitions here.
This is where Gary is awesome. Do we
Yeah,
say
Gary-
may be resolved or?
Where are you?
B1B, shall. Is
Yeah,
that the right word?
yes.
I'm sorry. Oh, you always got it on the screen here. Just a minute.
I've lost my definition posted. I have to tack it up.
How about addressed rather than resolved? Because we don't really know if they're going to be resolved, but those are the tools that we have in our belt.
That's good.
That's good. I like that.
I like that.
Very much. Yes, good. Now, do we want to keep in all that business about barriers and gates?
Yeah, because there are like Woodrow, we do
Woodrow.
have the gates
Mhm.
that close. So depending upon the facility, and Fairfax City has gates, I think, going into the parking garage, although I may be wrong about that.
I don't know.
So, depending upon the facility, that may be what we invoke.
Okay, because it's already exists, so, yeah.
So the way that we're doing this now is that, and this is highlighted, the part that I'm talking about now,
Mhm.
I just highlighted, is that
Yeah, I like that. That's good. Yeah.
Jessica has the authority to make arrangements with, say, a school, and this has happened. A private school says, hey, can we use your lot as a drop-off area for our school bus? And so she thinks, sure, that's fine. It's not dangerous. It's not going to impact services. That's a completely reasonable request. She does them in 6-month increments because you guys have the authority to do anything longer than that. Is that what you still want to continue with?
Personally, I think the 6 months is a good amount of time. Yeah.
Sure.
Technically, we're not talking about amending the policy, though.
What,
We're making an exception to it.
I'm not following you. Say that again, please.
But the policy can only be made by the board.
Oh, okay.
Oh, right. But you would be, I'm sorry, these would be suggestions that you would bring forward to the board
Oh,
to adopt.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I
So-
remember when I was at Woodrow, the mosque nearby requested permission to use the parking lot
Mhm.
on Friday nights, but it was denied.
Oh, that's interesting. We would probably approve it because we do that regularly with garden clubs. At Dolly Madison, there's a club that every 4th of July does an Independence Day thing and they park at the library because the library's closed.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
as long as it doesn't impact library services, we're pretty, we consider it sort of a good neighbor kind of thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I do. Yeah.
This doesn't really say, though, you have to bring it to the board.
No, Jessica has the authority to do less than 6 months, agreements of less than 6 months in duration. So if it's a day or a weekend, she can just approve that without bringing it to the board. That's this part that I have highlighted. All agreements regarding the lots are applicable for 6 months or more must go before the library board.
No, I'm asking a technical question, not a policy question. That it's saying here that the library director may amend the policy or make agreements that amend the policy.
oh, that,
Mm-mm.
yeah.
That-
You're saying that the library, it should say that the library director may make agreements that are exceptions to the policy.
Right.
So basically what we should say in the policy
Oh.
is that the board, the board gives the library director leave or delegates to the library director the authority to make short-term arrangements that are different than the terms of the policy or something like that. Because basically what we're doing is we're delegating to the library director the authority to do something different than what's in the policy
So,
without her having to come back to us or something.
right.
Mhm.
So just entering into agreements that are exceptions to the policy. Well, you'd have to reword the sentence, but
So if
So-
in C, we say the library director may permit these exceptions, then D, maybe the wording should just be different that, well, it does say, I don't know.
Oh, it says all agreements that are applicable for 6 months or more must be.
yeah,
approved.
that part's
Yeah.
okay. Although I wouldn't say library board, I'd use our traditional,
Name.
well, yeah, especially in the next sentence, you do use the entire name. You'd want to
Yeah.
use that
Right.
first, or
That's kind of-
in our glossary, we use the term, what do we do? Board of Trustees. So presumably in all the policies, we use the term Board of Trustees.
Oops. So I don't need Fairfax County Public. We can just go with Library Board of Trustees.
Yeah, I think so, but,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I wonder if we should, have a parallel construction of D, that the library director must seek or whatever, must get the approval from the Library of Trustees for any use that is going to be longer than the 6 months.
I like, if I may, I think either Miriam or Gary said the Library Board of Trustees, what is it when you bestow, empowers or
Delegates, I'd say.
delegates, thank you.
Delegates the authority or delegates the ability or something like that.
Isn't that what this does? By just saying that
Yeah,
we're making the policy. So we're
Okay, well
saying
then, fine.
that
You're
that
right.
may permit.
So
You're
take
right.
this out completely and just let D stand
No.
on it?
No,
no, you don't need to say the Board of Trustees delegates authority to the library, right? Because because by saying the library director may permit,
Okay,
but what I was saying is, I mean, it's fine, but whether it would clarify that in D that, or maybe it doesn't have to be a separate one, but in C, you could just put any agreement for 6 months or more must be approved by the Library Board of Trustees. I mean, I
yeah,
don't know.
so I am confused about why we have both C and D. Because if, it seems to me that if we're saying the library director has the authority to approve, I don't
Just-
think she has the authority to make exceptions to, well, I guess they are exceptions if we're permitting somebody to use
Yeah,
the lot and not,
but that's sort of like any exceptions that are longer than 6 months must be approved by the library board.
right.
But so it's probably okay the way it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think so.
I think
Yeah,
so.
okay.
Just adding Board of
Board of
Trustees.
Trustees,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Right,
And,
yeah.
and in C, can you just say such agreements?
Tell me again what I'm doing.
Where?
Okay, so maybe permit short-term exceptions to the basic use policy and may also enter into, yeah, it won't work, I guess. I thought could say such agreements with other public and private entities, but that's
Yeah, that's,
probably not clear enough.
Okay.
Yeah. as it stands, right?
But
Okay.
Sorry.
well, can't you just say that she can enter into agreements?
Yes.
And not, just leave out the amendment. the policy part.
Yeah.
So just say,
And may I also enter into agreements with
Agreements,
other public blah, blah, blah.
yep. Library may,
am I deleting the part that I have highlighted now?
Oh, I'm sorry. I keep looking at my own paper instead of the screen. Uh,
No, that stays,
Okay, so what's,
right? Exceptions to the basic use.
may also, yeah. That
And may also end agreements and then get rid of that, amend the policy.
okay. So just getting rid of that?
Yeah, that's good because you're
Yeah,
just
that's
amending
good.
the
Yeah.
policy. Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. Camping, I don't think we had anything specific to look at or recommended, recommended changes for you guys to consider, but you're certainly welcome to look at it.
Although if the library in their library of things, if we start checking out, camping equipment, then we're
No,
gonna have to rethink this then.
have to have a
Miriam?
label on it, not to be used in the library.
Miriam, we're gonna have them all at Oakton.
At the Westover Library in Arlington, I did have a person living in a cardboard box. They found a refrigerator box and brought it to the yard and were living there. It was really,
Oh, guys,
mean-
we have this all the time. This is
yeah,
not,
This is
this is
nothing.
not unusual.
this is real.
I mean, it's a sad commentary, but we are lucky that we don't have a huge problem like many other cities do,
Absolutely.
right?
It's heartbreaking for sure.
Yeah.
It really is. Christine, when in the paragraph underneath B, it says if library staff observes any person, who is library staff?
Branch
Is that-
staff, I mean, anybody who works for the library.
I would feel more comfortable assigning that notification to management, branch management.
Yeah, I see the person.
Well,
Hmm.
that person is just contacting library administration. They're not
Yeah.
doing anything about it. They're not taking any action except for asking us to take action.
Okay, but could you give me an example of when library staff would be picking up the phone and calling Jessica and not branch management?
Yeah, I think you raise a really good point, Sheila, because what if the branch manager doesn't know that a circade has called library administration about something, right?
That, and also it puts some library staff into a position where they think they're obligated to be policing library grounds rather than fulfilling their own job requirements.
Yes.
And I, as a branch manager, I took great exception to that.
Okay. We have been extremely clear with all library staff that they're not to approach anybody
Okay.
ever for
Okay.
their own safety. They are absolutely not to approach anybody. The police do that if the circumstances warrant it. So from a safety perspective, I think we have that down. I totally understand where you're coming from in terms of having a circade.
Or anybody.
Yeah, that was just an
Right.
example, but
Yeah, I mean, I think they work with the management in their teams,
mhm.
rather than, but I think this was done so that, like, say on a Sunday when the branch manager isn't there, I think this was, in
Yes,
fact,
but there is a Sunday manager.
but you
there's
have
a
a
branch
manager there.
right, but it's not the branch manager. So, I mean, we could
Well, I
say
think-
something about
Yeah.
management for sure. But I think when this was revisited in 2017, I think it used to say work with the branch manager, and the request was to make it more accessible to everybody so that you didn't have to wait for the branch manager to take action.
Right, but couldn't you say branch management?
Sure.
Yeah. And at the end of that sentence, to call law enforcement. Is camping a criminal offense in Fairfax County?
it becomes trespassing when we tell people to leave our grounds and they don't. So I don't know if I answered your question. I
Yeah,
mean,
I just think that I probably come from a perspective where I know that Fairfax doesn't have a huge homeless problem, but I have seen evidence of homelessness that is not criminal, people living in their cars. Reston has a lot of camping that's going on. It's not criminal. They're not criminals. That's I can't say that hard. These are
Mhm.
people without homes. They don't have jobs, or they have not enough money to live in an apartment. And so I don't see calling law enforcement. Um, unless they were really infringing, if they were lighting fires. Reston Regional Library has some problems. They're right next door to a shelter. And I think that the solution is working with the social workers and the people in Fairfax County who are trained to deal with the problem, which is not criminal, it's a problem. And so I just find that a better use of our staff time would not be looking around in the woods to see if there's a piece of cardboard out there. And I have had this happen in branches I've been in, so I'm speaking from personal experience.
I think you raise excellent points. And I think that right now, this has been a big frustration to the branch coordinators and me, because we don't have very many options in Fairfax County for as many services as Fairfax County provides. This is one of those donut holes where
Mhm.
the people that are charged with doing this are so overwhelmed that it
Yeah.
could take a month for a social worker to come out. And by that time, somebody has established that they live there now. And in the
Yeah.
meantime, they're frightening other people. They're defecating outside in the,
Well, I think there's the difference between being homeless and behavior. And I'm really, yeah.
absolutely. No, I don't disagree with anything that you
Right.
said. And I think
Right.
that we put too many, we ask too much of the police because they are law enforcement and they're not social workers.
Mhm.
And yet, again, all I can say is this is kind of like a donut hole. And so
Yeah,
sometimes the police are the first step to get folks into services,
yeah. I
and not it's not used punitively. It's used so that library staff are safe and they're not approaching somebody. And I'm not going to argue that this is the best. I'm not going to argue that this is an ideal way to approach it.
Right.
I think it is the best way to approach it given the tools that we have.
Are we talking about the second sentence?
We're talking about this part.
Right. Just
But the second sentence, that would only be a real emergency. Because it says if library administration is not available, library administration is always available.
Well, on Sundays, we are less available. I mean, they can certainly call us at
Saturdays.
home, but we're not sitting in our offices at our desks.
But I guess what I'm thinking is the kind of situation Phil is talking about is not all of a sudden on a Sunday. It would have to be a real emergency. Somebody'd have to be doing something that would be perhaps harming somebody or.
And in that case, that falls in the problem behavior
Well, I was going to say,
manual. And so that's a whole different ball of wax.
right. I wonder
Um,
if there's something that should be put in here that takes you to or refers you to the problem behavior manual, which does, and I've worked on that one too, back in the day,
right.
where it talked about, it defined solicitation and it defined harassment and different behaviors that are scary and cannot be allowed for safety. But
My strong recommendation, which you are welcome to, discount, is that this part is not broken. we haven't been asked to modify it. There's no reason, staff is not upset about it. It has not been ineffective.
Okay.
So
Okay.
unless you guys have a burning desire, that's not something that I
And it-
think
And
needs,
it hasn't been overused either,
no,
used to no extreme. Okay.
no. And I would
That's
say,
my only fear.
especially after George Floyd's killing, library staff have been very judicious about when to call the police and when to ask for social services. So I
Okay.
don't think this part's broken.
Okay.
Christine, my only concern is that it's not parallel. It's like we do use the term person in charge. If library administration is not available, the person in charge may contact, et cetera. But in the first part, I'm still concerned that the person in charge of the may not know if a library staff member has on their own contacted library administration. And then if there's a callback, it might come to the person in charge in management at the branch, and they'll be like, what, I don't know what this is. So I don't, that concerns me if that has not been a problem, but it just sort of think of like, oh, somebody's out there and they're, and also I guess I'm confused, like if library observe, and we could use the subjunctive there, but I'm not going to insist on that. If library staff observes any person who has been notified of this rule, now is this rule the overnight sleeping, or is it all of the above?
So this was revisited after we had a person who had been notified multiple times that she was not permitted to camp. And she kept coming back.
Mhm.
And she came back on a Sunday. And the staff there were upset
Yeah.
that they didn't feel like they had the authority to call the police to tell her again to leave. Because she used to camp, this was at Sherwood, and she used to camp on the front step of the library. So she was impeding.
Yeah.
So
it's a
what I
different-
would say to this, Fran, is that you guys are policy and you're high level. I think we have procedures about when staff go the chain of command, and I think those are working. So I think those address the concern. I see what you're saying. And we could certainly finesse the language if you think it's necessary to say staff shall contact library administration through the person in charge. But since this was most recently modified to give staff the authority to do it on their own, I hesitate.
Christine, let me just ask you a question.
Sure.
So basically, staff, and and this is something that I've had to learn personally, is that the library board is policy, staff, job training, the way that, the operation staff is not our domain at all. So possibly could we add in here, and I don't have the wording on the top of my head, but something to do with using whatever you're using, problem behavior manual or whatever you're calling your document that staff refer to for their job, for their job descriptions, or the running of the branches. The trickle down of this basic overall policy. Maybe there could be whatever the wording is in there. Is there a document that the staff are following, or how is the direction? What is the direction?
Yeah, it's definitely the problem behavior guidelines for sure. That's what.
So if we could add that in there according to, so that would take away a lot of these little, the staff can call the police or whatever. I mean, that's already been outlined for them in the procedure to go through, right? Making myself clear, maybe not.
Yeah, you are. My
just
brain is a second behind you. I'm churning here to catch up. Yeah, I mean, the procedures are all outlined. So again, I'm just going back to the initial reason that this was modified, which was to give library staff the power, so that they knew that they were empowered to
Right.
do this and they were not waiting for somebody else to take action. So
What if, to address Fran's concern, the second staff, change that to person in charge? That way the manager or whoever's in charge would know.
so like
In-
that, did I capture that correctly?
In other words,
Yeah.
if some staff person sees this and is concerned about it, they go to whoever's in charge that day, wouldn't have to be
Yes.
the manager,
Perfect.
and then they would make the call.
Sure.
I think that's perfect.
Does that work for you, Fran?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, perfect.
So should that be indented so that, no, it goes with A, it goes with both A and B. Right. Okay, I got it now.
It's already in B, so. Oh, I'm sorry. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. I think that's a good clarification.
I think that's great. That says it. Yes.
Thank you, Gary.
Can
Thank
I
you.
ask a couple of other little nitpick things? In
Sure.
camping means on 2, shouldn't there be a comma after, but not limited to, comma?
Yes.
Hmm. Yes, yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. Yeah, I had a note of that too. Yeah.
And then in B, I made a note yesterday, and of course that was eons ago, so I can't remember why I made it. But it's so it doesn't include the grounds, does it?
Yes, I think that's this.
All property.
So that is the parking lot and the grounds.
Yeah.
Is that unclear?
Just a minute. Miriam, you're an attorney. That it's only talking about the parking facility and parking lot, which is on the grounds. It's not talking about grounds that the other grounds, is it?
Where it's highlighted right here?
Let me
Oh,
take
I'm
a look,
sorry.
sorry.
Yeah.
Overnight sleeping in a parking facility or parking lot, or overnight habitation in a vehicle in a parking facility or parking lot is prohibited on all property administered by the Fairfax County Public Library Board of Trustees. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that sentence. I don't think.
Gary, are you asking if it's all encompassing to include like the non-paved surfaces?
Yeah, right.
That's the way it reads to me, that it includes them.
Use of library grounds. Well, camping is prohibited. Overnight sleep. I mean, I guess the question is, why is camping prohibited on all property, but overnight sleeping in a parking facility?
Overnight sleeping is a parking facility.
Because this doesn't have anything to do with camping. It has to do with sleeping. Let's see, overnight sleeping.
Well, really what you want to say here is overnight sleeping on any or any of the grounds,
Yeah, that's what I'm.
including a parking facility or
Yeah,
parking lot.
right.
Yeah, including, yep.
So it's the same phrase, on any property administered by the Fairfax County Public Library. Well, you already got that below.
But I can take it
Overnight
out, right?
sleeping on any, it's the same, just move that phrase from below to above, on any property administered by the Fairfax County Public Library Board of Trustees, including a parking facility or parking lot. Or overnight habitation in a vehicle. Why don't you say it this way? Overnight sleeping or overnight habitation in a vehicle
Hmm.
on
Any property, yeah,
any property,
yeah.
on any property administered by the Library of Trustees, including a parking facility or parking lot, comma, is prohibited, period.
Right.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you need, don't you need to cross out parking facility or parking lot?
No, because that's the only place it appears. We just moved the stuff around it.
Overnight habitation in a vehicle on any property administered by the
Including
parking. Oh, including, I missed including. Okay,
a parking facility or
Gotcha.
parking lot.
yeah, got it.
Does that work for you too, Gary?
I think so. I'm looking at the right place now. Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Do we have time? We need to, well, I guess we don't have to do the bylaws today. We could do that at the next meeting if you
Yeah,
don't think
I'm
we
gonna
can get
have
through
to
it in
check
8
out here
minutes.
because I've got other
Yeah.
calls coming up.
Can I do just one other real quick one? 3A, shouldn't it be customers are to engage only in activities associated?
Sure.
Okay.
I think that's a good catch.
If we're gonna do the bylaws for next time, Christine, do you mind sending out again whatever the attachment was? I can never find anything.
Well, you know what, we have on the agenda for Wednesday,
Bylaws, don't we?
the work that we've already done.
Yeah.
On the bylaws. So after that, then we could check them,
Okay,
right? Does that make sense?
sure.
So we're not going to vote on the bylaws tomorrow.
Yeah.
We
They're an
are.
action item.
Yeah, that's
My
what I
mistake.
gonna
I brought up the
discuss it,
bylaws.
though.
I'm sorry. I brought up the bylaws for this meeting and you've already finished it. It's for
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Okay.
So I
Cool.
confused us.
Before I check out here, do you want to put another committee meeting on the agenda and on the calendar? And then if we don't need it, we can cancel it? I guess we will need it if we're going to go back and talk about
Yes,
the,
we do.
Can
We do. I
I-
thought we had one. Go ahead.
Can I
Kristen.
suggest that we see how long it takes me to get the information back
sure.
from that list of questions? Because if I have to, talk to the
Yeah,
county
of
attorney or
course.
some
If
other
you have to go-
folks.
If you have to talk to the county attorney, it could take a bunch of time.
Yeah, so I'll get back to you when I have answers and then we can set the meeting up at that point.
Okay.
And I have on my calendar, I have policy meeting on January the 12th at 3:00.
Okay.
Does anybody else have that? Or
Wait, what do you have?
I have January the 12th, policy meeting at 3:00.
Oh, you're right. It's already there. Okay, so Christine, why don't we leave this on the calendar and then you can just let us know if we need to cancel it.
Yep, that's great.
Was that 3:00 or 2:00?
I have 3.
Yeah, me too. And I just wasn't sure what I heard. Okay.
Fabulous. Thank you all. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
So Sheila, do you
Christine.
want to stay on and we talk about the procedures of motions and stuff, or anybody else who wants to stay for
I
that?
sure do.
All right,
Okay, I'm gonna
I-
hang up then.
Okay.
Meeting
I
adjourned.
don't know. So Bobby will just leave. I don't know if you're going to get kicked off, but try. Bye, Miriam.
Bye, Miriam. Thank
Bye,
you.
Mary. So I
everybody.
had sent you,